A new vaccine for heroin is getting closer to human trials. But it's still 10 to 15 years from reaching the market. Addiction experts and treatment professionals are wary of how much it will help the current opioid crisis. Two scientists are locked in a race to develop a groundbreaking vaccine for heroin. But many addiction experts and health officials warn that the medicine is unlikely to be the endgame for the current opioid crisis and is a decade from reaching the market, at the earliest. Dr. Kim Jonda, a chemist at the Scripps Research Institute in La Jolla, California, has been developing vaccines targeting addictive substances for nearly 30 years and has pioneered much of the research in the field. He began developing the heroin vaccine about a decade ago and in recent years has begun work on a vaccine for fentanyl, a painkiller 50 times more powerful than heroin and the cause of an increasing number of overdose deaths. His competitor, Dr. Gary Matiash, has been developing his vaccine since 2011 at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research in Maryland, a facility run by the Department of Defense. Matiash's work largely builds on Jonda's and grew out of a research push to develop a vaccine for HIV. His vaccine has since become a combination heroin and HIV vaccine. So far, both Jonda's and Matiash vaccines have been tested only in animals. While work on opioid vaccines stretches back decades, the research has gained added urgency in light of the opioid crisis. Last year, more than 30,000 Americans died from overdoses related to opioids, with that number rising nearly every year since 1999. President Donald Trump announced that he was declaring the crisis a national emergency last month, but his administration has yet to officially do so. Still, the prospect of a heroin vaccine has stoked a lot of interest and enthusiasm in the research. But as more is learned about the vaccine, its limitations as a moonshot cure have become clearer. Vaccines are an innovative approach that may be promising, but it won't be the panacea, Dr. Ivan Montoya, a director at the National Institute on Drug Abuse, who has approved grants for both projects, told Business Insider. Keeping heroin from entering the brain, the body reacts to the antigen by creating antibodies to attack it. When heroin molecules enter the body again, the body's immune system antibodies will be able to fight against it. New messages how a heroin vaccine works. Heroin molecules are attached to weakened tetanus antigens and injected into the body. Vaccines help the body create antibodies. For example, a measles vaccine works by helping the body's immune system make antibodies that can confront the virus should you come across it. That way, you won't get sick. That's how a heroin vaccine would work, in theory, helping the body's immune system recognize the heroin molecule and knock it out of the body before it can get to the brain receptors that give you a high. If you aren't able to get high, ideally for a long period after the vaccine's given, it could make it easier to quit, or at least protect you from overdose. These drugs have to get in the brain to have their function, Matiash said. While the details are still being worked out, each vaccine works in different ways. Jonda's vaccine is designed to specifically eliminate heroin, while Matiash is working to make his vaccine bind to the substances that heroin breaks down to. If successful, that would mean Matiash vaccine could block the effects of a wider variety of opioids. That's important because one of the main concerns is that many addicts switch between substances to get their fix. A persistent opioid addiction leaves the brain perpetually lacking endorphins for long periods after use stops. Because neither vaccine fixes that, it could leave addicts trying to alleviate cravings by opioids not covered by the vaccine. If you create a vaccine for morphine, people could switch to fentanyl. We already have people using fentanyl rather than heroin to avoid triggering drug tests because fentanyl is so difficult to detect, Mark Willenbring, a leading addiction psychiatrist who runs Alter, a treatment clinic in Minneapolis, told Business Insider. On the other hand, creating a vaccine that targets a broad spectrum of opioids has its own problems. One of the most effective treatments for opioid use disorder are maintenance drugs like buprenorphine, commonly known as Suboxone, and methadone, which are chemically similar to opioids and work by attaching to the same brain receptors, preventing users from using other opioids to get high while reducing cravings and withdrawal symptoms. Matyash acknowledged that creating a vaccine that stops problematic opioids while avoiding treatment drugs is the goal. What it will take to get a heroin vaccine approved. John Moore/Getty Images. For now, the vaccine has been tested only in animals. Montoya at NIDA called current studies of the vaccine's use in animals N.